Hello everyone, this is Witch Calypso with Bubbles, and we're back with another RPG Maker tutorial video today. To start things off, though, someone brought this to my attention on Reddit, which I really do appreciate it. And once again, this is why I tell you all that if I'm ever doing something wrong with my code, or there's a more efficient way of doing it, please let me know. I'm relearning JavaScript, so, if you ever need to call me out on something, please do let me know. I actively encourage it so that, we can all learn together, we can get better. So, I have not been doing the best job with establishing my variables, which for a small project or like a one-off thing, probably is not that going to be that bad, but if you're making a longer game or a bigger project, then I want to make this clear with anything that you use in my tutorial vid. So, when you're setting up variables, you want to either use const, let, well, really just those two. Constant is meaning that you're setting up a variable and you want that variable to be constant, and an example would be like pi. If you set const pi equals 3.14, that would make sense because we don't want pi to ever change. Like, we know pi is always going to be 3.14. Let's leave it at that. Let is very similar to pi. Let's just say color equals red. And let basically just means that you want this variable to be used in your code, but you want it to be adjustable, or it is going to change. So, that's good for, like, if you're trying to establish a color of something or whatnot, or even a for loop where you set let x equals 0, as long as x is less than 5, x plus plus increment. That's another use that you would use for let. And what this does, it means that these variables are only going to be used within that block of code. And then once it's done running that block of code, it won't use these variables anymore. It will like dispose of them properly, and they won't be within the game's memory, thus freeing up space and resources. If you use var, or just don't use anything, so let's just say variable x, or just x equals 0, x equals 0. Also, let me put the semicolon. It's just an example, it doesn't matter, but if you do either one of these, which I have been doing, then this is what makes the variable a global variable, which is saved within the game's memory, and it is a variable that you can use constantly throughout your game. You can just call it once, establish it, and then it is used throughout the entirety of your game until the game gets turned off. That is. So, and there's nothing wrong with using, well, ideally you want to use constant let more than global variables. But if you do, and you'll see this in my code for today, I've been trying to improve on this, but Calix, Calix, you want to use a more specific name for your variables if you do decide to make them global. That way there's no issues with it trying to read other scripts, other plugins that you may be using, etc., etc. You shouldn't run into that issue with other plugins, though. Depending on, like, if you're using a plugin from, like, Yawnfly or Visual Stella, I believe, then I believe they name all their variables pretty specific, so you shouldn't run into that issue, but it's just good practice regardless. So yeah, just want to clarify that up. So once again, thank you for pointing that out. If I ever do anything wrong or just like not optimally, let me know. I'll try and improve. And yeah, moving forward, we'll just do better. Anyway, let me get into what we're going to be teaching you guys today. So we have these shopkeepers. I'm in a dungeon, if you couldn't tell. And we have these 3 shopkeepers, and this one's offering me a fire tome, a bomb, and star candy for a pretty hefty price. Let's go talk to this one. This one's offering me a bomb, fire tome, mana potion, antidote. But you may notice that this fire tome and bomb, their prices are way less than the other ones. And she's also offering more items. And then this shopkeeper, oh, this one's star candy is really expensive. And then the antidote. Cures poison. Wow, I can't. Don't mind that I used completely wrong icon for poison. Don't worry about it. You know what? It's the poison is a silent killer. Um, so how did I do this? And you might be thinking like, oh, you just set it up so that because you're probably thinking, well, can't you just do shop processing and then put the items that you have in there like this, and then either standard or specify the price? Well, you may be thinking that, but no. That is a way that you can do it, but with what I'm teaching you all today, that's not what we're doing. We're setting up a system so that these are what I would consider dungeon merchants. So if you're in a dungeon and you come across a merchant inside the dungeon, they could be really helpful because they could offer the player items so that way you don't have to go back out of the dungeon. But because you are in a dungeon, maybe they upcharge you because, it makes sense, right? They're merchants, they can make a profit. So let's take a look at just one of these merchants. Or let me set up the establishing one. So we have this right here. Now I have 3 indexes in this array. This is Kali merchant set. This is just a way to tell the game, because whenever you interact with a merchant, the game is going to establish their inventory, and then it's going to leave it that way until you either reset them, like maybe you want their inventory to change when you leave the dungeon, maybe it changes whenever you go to bed and you go to a new day, etc, right? It's just up to you. So I want this one, Kali merchant set, and I have 3 indexes here for 3 merchants. For projects I've worked on in the past, I don't make my dungeons super long, so ideally I think you only need like 2 um 2 merchants, but I did 3 just because, who knows. But if you ever need more than 3, then you just add more to this. um So let's look at this merchant's code. So first thing is a simple if statement, and I use a script call within the if statement, which once again, if you don't know how to do that, it's on the 4th page. You just click the button for script, and then you do this. So this is basically telling the game if Kali merchant set of 0 equals 0, that's saying, oh, you haven't encountered this merchant yet, or you haven't triggered their inventory. Let's get that set up. And then I have this other global variable here, Kali shop set, and I have a little note tag here that tells me what all the indexes do. So let's step through it one by one. And you may notice again, this is a nested or multi-dimensional array, at least for the second or the first index. So index 0 is telling the game the item type. Once again, if I have the link in the description below for specific RPG Maker related script calls. When you're doing this and you're doing the shop processing one, you have to tell it what item type you're looking for. And the general rule is that if it is a 0, it's an item. If it's a 1, it's a weapon. And then 2 is for armor. So you set this up to be whether you want the player to give the or set up an item that is for an item, a weapon, or armor. I say 0 for an item. Index 1, this is going to be your array, your nested array. And this is basically just the array of item IDs that you want the merchants to have available to potentially show up. These do not have to be in order, by the way. I have these in numerical order, but for the code, when we get to it, these don't have to be in order. Index 2 is telling if we put a 0 there, then it's retail price, which is basically the price that you have set for the item index in your database. And then 1 is for the adjusted price, which means that you are telling the game that you want it to be a different value from what you put in the database. For this example, I set this to 1 because I do want the price to be adjusted. Index 3 is the cost rate. This one will not be read if this index is 0. If it's retail price and you put something in here, it won't be read. So you can either, 2 ways you can do it. You can either set this value to 1 because a number times 1 is always itself. Or you can just set this to 0 and then leave this one alone. It's up to you. Both ways work. And then index 4 is the shop inventory count. I have this to a 3. This is basically saying how many items do you want the merchant to offer the player in their in their array. So I said 3. And per usual, make sure that this number is not greater than how many items you have in this array, because then eventually it's going to run out of room, and then it won't have any more numbers to call from. So, and the last one here is you just telling the game or the software, the code, what merchant you want this to be related to. My merchants are tied to variables, and it starts at variable 41, and then 2 and 3 are for merchant 2 and 3, respectively. This is just our way to tell the game later on, hey, we've established the shop layout for the first merchant, the first dungeon merchant, so that way, when it comes here, so say, or we'll go in here, but once it runs through this code, and then we'll go through this in a bit, then it goes here, it says shop inventory equals game variable value of 41, which we'll get to that here in a bit, and then scene.push scene shop, and then scene manager. Once again, this is the RPG Maker code for how you like tell it to run the scene for a shop. So shop inventory and then false. If this is false, then you're saying that the player can't sell items. If it's true, the player can only buy, not sell. Okay, and so let's look at the dungeon merchant setup. So luckily we only have one common event to go through today, so that's good. I just have this code right here. Well, this is just a reminder, once again, in case you forget. So we have let shop inventory equals an empty array, and then we're having a for loop here. So let x equals 0 as long as x is less than Cali shop set 4, which if you remember, index 4 is the shop inventory count. So how many items we want the shopkeeper to have accessible to us. So this is going to go through it 3 times. Let shop index equals an empty array. Let RNG equals math.randomInt. Cali shop set 1, which remember, 1 is the array of item IDs that we gave it. We're going to get a random integer based on the length of that array, and then we're going to let item ID variable equals Cali shop set 1 of RNG. So it's going to grab the array, and then RNG is going to give us a number based on the RNG that we gave us. So it might give us 0, 1, 2, whatever, and it'll just grab the first, second, third, fourth index of our item ID array. And then we let cost equal 0. We set switch, we're doing a switch case here, so we set switch to true, and then we say case, if Cali shop set 0 equals 0, meaning that it's an item, then we do cost equals math.ceiling, I'll explain that here in a bit, equals the datum items item ID, which once again, that is like, in this case, let's say 61. So it's going to grab the 61th item in our item database, and then dot price is telling the game, grab the price that we put in the database for that. So 61 is a heal potion, which I believe is 7. It costs 7. And then we multiply that by Cali shop set 3, which once again, 3 is our cost rate. And for this merchant, I believe I made the cost rate 1.5, basically saying increase the default price by 50%. And then that'll be our cost. And then we break if it gets us this. If it's 1, we're doing a case switch here because if it's a 1, we have to call weapons and armors differently. So if we're calling an item, it's data items, data weapons, data armors. And then the other bit of code is the same. And also math.ceiling. I think I've talked about this before, but there in RPG Maker, generally it will automatically truncate or round down any value that it gets. So if it gives like 3.9, it'll automatically just make that a 3. But ceiling makes it so that no matter what it gets, it was always going to round up. So if it gets 3.5, it makes it a 4. If it gets 3.1, it gives us a 4, etc., etc. The other calls are dot floor. Floor obviously means always round down. And then dot round is the one that is probably what we all remember from algebra, where it's like, if it's less than or equal to 5, then round down. If it's greater than that, then round up. So yeah, that's what that does. So this is just saying, because you don't have to include math.ceiling. I'm just doing it because it kind of makes sense that a merchant in a dungeon would always round up and not be in the favor of the player. And then shop index, which once again is just an empty array right now, is going to equal Kali shop set 0, excuse me, which in this case will be a 0. And then item ID, which we would have gotten to be whatever RNG gave us, so 61. Kali shop set 2, which once again, this is basically saying this is either going to be a 0 or a 1. This is where we tell the game whether we want the item be at retail or adjusted price. So it's going to be a 1 because we want the price to be adjusted. And then cost, which we established here. And remember, if this one's a 0, then it'll just ignore this. So you can still put a cost in there. It'll still be in that array, but it won't read it. And then Kali shops at 1 dot splice RNG of 1. RNG 1. Dot splice just means take the array. We're going to take that array of IDs, and it's going to start at the index of RNG, so 0, and then remove 1 of that item. And then, that's all it needs to do. And then shop inventory dot push shop index. So we get this little setup, and then we push shop inventory, we push that array into shop inventory. And then that's the end of the for loop. It's going to go through this, in this case, 2 more times. And now we have our nested array, our multi-dimensional array of our items with their adjusted prices. Once it's through with that, we're going to say game variables dot set value of Kali shop set 5, which once again 5 is the merchant ID that we're setting this up for. And then shop inventory. We're going to set variable 41 equal to our multi-dimensional array that we set up. And then switch true, we do in our switch case here. This is just saying if Kali shop set 5 is 41, then Kali merchant set 0 equals 1. And then if it's 42, we set that to 1. And then 43, we set that to 1. This right here is just to make sure that we're telling the code, okay, we have an inventory for this merchant. So that way, whenever we talk to that merchant again, it won't rerun the code to give them a new set. It'll be like, oh, no, they have their inventory. They're good. Just go ahead and skip that code. Go to the shop setup. And then break. And then, okay. And then we go back. And so once it does that, now it gets out of this if statement, and we're here. And once again, shop inventory is going to equal game variables dot value of 41, because this is our first merchant. Scene dot push, scene shop, and then scene prepare next scene, shop inventory false. Because what scene manager prepare next scene, the first one here, this is looking for a nested array, where the first array, or the first index of the array, is giving us the, hold on a second. It's giving us the item ID. So is it a weapon, item, or armor? The second index is our, well, first index. The 0th index is the item type. The first index is the ID. The third one is whether you want it to be a retail or adjusted price. And then the fourth one, or third one, is the adjusted price that you're looking for. And so, I do have a second map here, as if you're leaving the dungeon. And if you go back in, you see here I call Kali merchant set, and then I reset the array here. That way, basically saying like, oh, you left the dungeon, now if you go back in, the merchants will start selling you something different this time. In addition, I also made it to where all these merchants kind of like do different things. and have different rules. So if you're doing additional merchants, the only thing that you have to adjust between all of them is make sure that this one, the if statement, you change the Kali merchant set, which once again, Kali merchant set is my global variable. Make sure you change it. I mean, you can leave it Kali if you want to, but you probably want to change it to be more specific to you. Um, but Kali merchant set, you should make sure you check this to be a 1 or a 0, just to correlate with the merchant that you're talking to. So this is the second merchant, so it gets a 1. And then in this call right here, this global with the Kali shop set, make sure you change this to equal whichever one you're looking for. So if this is the first merchant, or the second merchant, then make sure this is a 1 and this is a 42. If it's the third merchant, make sure this is a 2 and this is a 43. Oh, sorry, you can't even see. that's weird on you guys, and then sorry about that. If it's the first merchant, then this needs to be a 0, this one needs to be a 0, and then this one needs to be a 41, or whatever variable you have correlated to your dungeon merchants. If this is a 1, this is a 42. If this is a 2, this is a 43, etc., right? And this merchant, I have the same array of items. Item is still the same, but I said, go ahead and give us the retail price. And then I left 1.5 here because once again, if this is a 0, it'll still do this, but it won't matter. It won't read it. And then I want it to have this merchant to give us 5 items of our array. And then for the third merchant here, this one is really picky, or not picky, but really cheap, really greedy. She adjusts the price, but I said, go ahead and double the value of everything. And then only give us 2. Only give the person 2 items to look for. And then this is a 43 because it's the third merchant. So once again, let me go through that. And I have right here, I don't know, you probably cannot see that. That was probably way too small. That was probably way too small. But I have a little notepad here to show you all the prices. So the items that I have available to the player is a heal potion, a mana potion, an antidote, a fire tome, a bomb, and star candy. The heal potion is 7, mana potion is 12, antidote is 5, fire tome 18, bomb is 20, star candy is 25. So just to like show you that it does work, let's do the math. So if we talk to this one, we have a mana potion. This merchant increased the cost of everything by 50%. So a mana potion's original price is 12. So we do 1.5. We get 18, so that's correct. The antidote is 5 times 1.5, which is 7.5. So that rounds up, or that goes ceiling to an 8. So that is also correct. And the bomb is 20 times 1.5 is 30. So yeah, they all work. That's all good. They all are upmarked. Or upcharged, I should say. Upmarked, that's weird. These are all the default prices because that's what I told this one to do, and it makes sense. And also just like buy one. Yeah, and then these are the 2. A heal potion is 7, so 7 times 2 is 14. The bomb is 20. 20 times 2 is 40. So yeah, once again, those work just fine. And once again, yeah, I did actually buy it. It still works. So let's leave the dungeon. And let's take note that she offered us a mana potion, an antidote, and a bomb. So if we leave the dungeon, and now we're on the world map. Ooh, look at that. That would have been really funny if I forgot, like, I added in enemy encounters here and I got into a fight. Let's go back in. Sorry, I'm rambling. Check this again. And now she's offering us a bomb, an antidote, and a fire tome. So, a different array of items. And if we do it again, and go back in, fire tome, bomb, and mana potion. So, yeah, there you go. Pretty cool. So, that's just another thing you can do, an interesting thing. And there's like a multitude of other ways that you can make this work. You can have every merchant in your game work this way. I actually would not advise that. Now I think about that, probably don't do that. Maybe, but you could probably make it to where maybe their up charges are, and also the cost rate does work inversely. So if you set the value to like 0.5, um, that will then give, instead of an upcharge, a discount, a 50% discount on everything. So you can use it that way too. The maths basically. So yeah. Maybe like if you do the merchant a favor, you can make it to where, hey, now this merchant sells their offer wares to you at half off because they like you. Um, so yeah, just a cool thing you can do. Once again, if there's anything that I did wrong or you think I could adjust or do better, let me know. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. If there's any other kind of tutorial that you would like to see me do, I have my list of things that I try and do every week. But if there's something in specifically you want to see, then also let me know. But that's all I have for today. So thank you all so much. Let's have a wonderful rest of our week, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.